On the show this week, we test drive BMW's brand new 6 Series GT. Hormazd takes a drive in the Rolls Royce Phantom. And Rishaad takes the MV Agusta Brutale 800 out for a ride. Well, if you're looking for a car that's spacious and comfortable and loaded with luxury, but you don't want stately, you want sporty and stylish, well, BMW think they might have just the answer for you. This is the car that they're bringing soon to India, the 6 GT, and I'm here in Lisbon to find out what it's all about. This car basically replaces the previous 5 GT, but its wheelbase is shared with the regular 7 Series. Now, since we have the long wheelbase version of the 7 Series in India, there will be enough distinction between these two models. The nose is similar to the 5 Series with the headlamps that fuse into the twin grille, and though the 6 GT shares a lot with its siblings, it stands apart by creating its own identity. Its lowered height, steeply raked windscreen and flowing roofline make it striking. The muscular lines give it presence. The air vents on the side not only improve aerodynamics but give it some sportiness, and the frameless doors add flair. The wedge-shaped rear with its wraparound tail lamps just completes the overall appeal. It's definitely more stylish than the outgoing 5 GT. In fact, it is a striking car. Now, apart from just the good looks, its form has function too. The notchback lets it open up a large 610-litre boot that can be extended to a full 1800 litres. Step inside the 6 GT and you do get that sense of occasion, the sense of luxury that you absolutely want from a car of this category. The interiors, although very familiar because you see a lot of common things between the 5 and the 7 Series, still has that top quality, great materials, and of course it comes feature loaded too. You get a screen-based instrument panel, big high-resolution touchscreen, gesture control, surround view cameras, remote parking, 10-inch screens for the rear seat passengers, a 1400-watt Bowers & Wilkins sound system, and even the ability to create a Wi-Fi hotspot. Those are some of the goodies, but there are more driver assist systems that are under the skin. While we aren't sure how many of them will make it to India, what we do know is we will get the air suspension with the dynamic damper control. Now, the advantage of having the air suspension is quite substantial, I think, especially in a country like ours where sometimes you have to go through potholes and bigger speed bumps. So what you can see happening here is that the ride height is rising. Yeah, you have about 30 millimeters of travel that you can play with, and you can raise the car quite substantially off the ground, as you can see. So that's one of the big advantages. And of course, the second feature that I quite like is this rear spoiler that you can activate. Yes, you can do it manually as well, but when you're driving, it automatically activates at around 120 kilometers an hour to give you that additional downforce, and it will retract itself at 70 kilometers an hour. And whilst that happens, the car will also lower itself on the move, if we need, by 10 millimeters to give you that more sporty feel. So we've ticked the stylish and sporty boxes. Let's talk space. Well, this is a car that's going to now rival the E-Class, the long wheelbase version that we have in India, and I have to say that there is a considerable amount of room here. It's not as much as you get in the E-Class, but there's still loads of leg room, even for the tallest of people. I'm not the perfect reference, but as you can see, there's plenty of leg space over here. The seat, although contoured for 2 passengers, can fit a third one in quite comfortably. And it does feel extremely spacious. The seat is a bit low set. Still, there's no feeling of being hemmed in. There's lots of glass area. There's a sunroof as well. So a nice, spacious, airy backseat to be in. Apart from the space, you get side air vents and central ones to keep you cool with temperature control as well. You have these nice pillowy soft covers for the headrest that let you get really comfortable, and if you want to get even more comfy, you can recline the seat to quite a considerable amount. So yes, this is the lap of luxury. So far, the stationary 6GT had me impressed, but with the coastal road alongside, the temptation to drive was just too great, and it was time to get behind the wheel. So what I'm driving is the 40i. Now this engine gets going really nicely. It's got a good amount of torque. It's creamy smooth. Even at 90, when I put my foot down, I've got this giant wave of torque just vaulting me forward. It's pretty amazing to drive, and I'm enjoying it, but unfortunately, I don't think this is the engine that will come to India. What we will probably get is the 30D that powers the 5 Series. Let's not forget that this version of the car has shaved off 150 kg over the previous 5GT. So the same 265 HP turbocharged 3-litre diesel inline-6 that powers the 5 Series in India in standard rear-wheel drive guise can do a 0 to 100 sprint in 6.1 seconds. It's plenty quick and only marginally slower than the similarly spec'd 5 Series. And you can expect the smoothness and mid-range punch that you get in the 5 as well. Now, if you get a nice winding section of road, all you have to do is switch it into sport. And yes, everything hunkers down. I definitely feel more connected to the road, much more weight in my steering, throttle response is quicker, gear shifts are faster. And if I want, I can even hold on to a gear much longer. The car feels well planted at high speeds, it corners well, and in sport, body roll is also much better contained. It's quite enjoyable to drive on a quick, winding section of road. Now this car aims to get, the perfect setting between sporty and comfort. What you have here is the option to get extra comfortable with a setting that is Comfort Plus. And this means that the ride gets really soft. It glides over all the bumps and potholes. Even the sharper ridges don't catch it out. And though the roads here are pretty much smoother than mine, I have taken it over some rough spots. And I can tell you, even in our conditions, this ride will be comfortable. The comfort setting is divided into Plus and Standard modes. Now, as you pick up the pace and you have undulating sections of road, if you find that Comfort Plus is getting a bit too soft, all you have to do is switch it back to Standard and you have a good comfy ride without much movement anyway. Tethers it down a little bit better. And then, of course, there are all the driver assist systems, and although they may not make their way to India at this time, it's interesting enough to talk about. If you get bored of driving along a road, and even if it's a twisty, windy section, all you have to do is press the button for driver assist system on your steering wheel, lift your hands off, and as you can see, it's even taking the corner for me. It's a bit scary, and I keep feeling like I have to put my hands back on, especially when I see a car coming at me in the opposite direction, but it's keeping to the lane extremely well. I have another slight corner coming up. Yeah, just doing the work for me absolutely easily until it decides that I'm going a bit too quick for it, and then it warns me to put my hands back on. The 6GT had me impressed on many counts. Practicality with its spacious cabin and large boot, the comfort of its back seat, its sportiness with its agile driving manners, and its luxury with its high-quality interiors and feature list. So the 6 Series GT will be seen in India in 2018. It will bridge the gap between the 5 Series and the 7 Series and will rival the likes of the long wheelbase E-Class in India. Will be priced similarly too. Now, what do I think about this car? Well, I think it is a well-rounded package. Not only is it spacious and luxurious and comfortable and practical, it's sporty and stylish looking too.
This is the 8th generation Rolls Royce Phantom. It's the new Rolls Royce flagship, which means it's the pinnacle of luxury on wheels. Now it comes 14 years after the last Phantom, and a lot of that time was spent developing, honing and fettling the world's best car to make it even better. The Phantom still looks majestic despite a few modern elements that have been introduced in the design. The signature Parthenon grille doesn't sit quite as proudly on the nose as before and is now flush with the body. All the body panels are new, but the untrained eye will have trouble telling the new Phantom apart from the previous model. Rolls-Royce hasn't deviated from the previous car's styling intentionally because owners just loved the way the Phantom 7 looked. The Phantom's overall road presence hasn't diminished and it looks as stately and unabashedly ostentatious as ever. Now, the earlier Phantom, it had auto door closing on the rear doors, but in the new one it pampers the driver as well, and this one automatically closes too. I could get used to this. You can spend the whole day inside a Phantom just soaking up the luxury oozing out of every pore. There's richness in every small detail, right from the deep pile carpets, the exquisitely stitched leather trim, fine-grained wood, to the soft leather seats with feather-filled headrests. Now, an absolutely brilliant piece of design in the new Phantom is this, what Rolls-Royce calls the gallery. Now, it is basically a gallery because under this long piece of glass which sits across the dashboard, you can actually have artwork behind it. So Rolls-Royce says in about 18 months to 2 years from now, they are actually going to give you this piece where you can have your favorite artist, you can commission your favorite artist to create a work of art for you. And this in itself is a work of art. In fact, the whole car is a work of art, even what's below the regal-looking body. Underpinning the Phantom is an all-new aluminium chassis that is largely responsible for the superlative refinement and ride quality, two things that define a Rolls-Royce. The silent cabin is the perfect place for you to calmly think about your next merger or big takeover. Sitting at the back, you have your own set of controls that operate everything. It just takes a simple press of a button for the table and screen to glide out. Well, I'm in the back seat of the new Phantom, which is where most owners will spend their time. In fact, in India, about 100% of owners prefer to be in the back seat. And can you blame them? It's really fit for a king. Everything you touch over here, top quality, oozing with luxury. Legroom, absolutely fantastic. This is the short wheelbase version and I can sit with my legs crossed. But what's really amazing is how quiet this car is. It's eerily silent. You could probably even hear an ant cough. It's an incredible experience being whisked away in a car that just effortlessly glides forward like it's on a cushion of air. But the highlight of the interior of the Phantom is this starlight roof, which is made up of over 1,000 tiny lights. It's like having your own Milky Way, and it certainly leaves me starry-eyed. While the backseat is where most Phantom owners will spend their time, behind the wheel is also a special place to be. Now, this is a big car. It's more than 5.7 meters long, it weighs 2.5 tons, but surprisingly it's quite easy to drive. In fact, it's effortless to drive. The steering, it isn't exactly bristling with feel, but it's light, and the way this car eases itself into corners, it's all about low pulse rate travel that makes it so special. The Phantom gets four-wheel steering or rear wheels that steer in the opposite direction by 3 degrees to make maneuvering for you and your chauffeur that much easier. The new Phantom, it gets heads-up display for the first time and it's standard. But to be honest, what I like to see outside the windscreen is the spirit of ecstasy. That's such a special sight. Behind the spirit of ecstasy is a long hood which, true to Rolls-Royce tradition, houses a massive, silky smooth and unstressed power plant. And in case you're wondering, Rolls-Royce will never offer a diesel. Like the previous car, This Phantom gets a 6.75 litre V12, but it's a new engine and this time it's turbocharged. So the headline figure is 900 Newton meters of torque. But it's not just the figure, it's just the velvety way all that torque and power is delivered. This car is all about linearity. It's the way it just wafts you to speed without even knowing it. So should you buy the new Phantom? That's a difficult question to answer, especially if the price is going to start from 8 crores on the road, rising to as much as 10 crores for a car with a decent amount of customization. Well, the way to view it is not as an automobile, but as a work of art. And that's when the Phantom might just start making sense. But you first have to be a billionaire.
You joined me on what started as a lovely sunny day but then quickly turned into a monsoon downpour. Now I am completely soaked, but there's still a big smile on my face, and that's all thanks to this motorcycle. The Brutale 800 is a new entry point into MV Agusta ownership in India, and we're really keen to see if this bike can live up to the fearsome reputation of its predecessor. The previous generation Brutale 800 stands out as one of the most exciting and fearsome experiences I've ever had on two wheels. The bike was tiny, ridiculously fast, and the combination of a short wheelbase and firm suspension meant that it felt quite skittish on our roads. But that bike never made it to India because MV decided to launch the new and significantly improved 2016 model here instead. For the new version, MV took what was already a gorgeous machine and made it even prettier, while retaining the famous silhouette of the original. That means the tight design keeps most of the mass centered around the front, but there are many fresh elements like the new LED headlamp, subtly redesigned fuel tank, and a fresh LCD instrument cluster. But our favorite angle has to be the sleek rear end, with that stunning hollowed out underseat section and the cleverly designed rear fender. The signature organ pipe exhaust has grown in size for Euro 4 compliance, but it gets a lovely finish and remains a complete head turner positioned next to the exposed rear wheel. The handlebar is now slightly wider and taller too, which helps retain the compact and sporty riding position while giving the rider extra leverage. It's all put together nicely, but the switchgear feels like it came off a much more affordable machine and could use improvements in terms of quality and ease of use. The new Brutale continues with its 798cc inline 3-cylinder engine layout, but the Manic motor has seen some big changes. For the new version, MV Agusta chose to reduce outright power from the previous 123 horsepower to 109. But there's now more torque and most of it arrives as low as 4000 RPM. The result is a slightly less Manic top end, but a much harder hitting mid-range. And that means this bike feels just as fast as the old one. The revised engine has made some improvements in terms of refinement, but continues to generate some buzz in the bars. Heat radiating off the engine at low revs is still quite significant, but it's certainly an improvement over the slow roast that the old model gave your feet in heavy traffic. As for the exhaust, it gets a cleaner and sharper tone while retaining that signature MV rasp and snarl. But this is not an easy machine in less than perfect conditions. Over and above the engine heat, the heavy clutch becomes painful in traffic and the firm suspension is punishing on poor roads. Adding to the discomfort of the firm suspension on rough roads is the soft seat. Now that might sound counterintuitive, but the reality is this seat is so soft that you quickly sink right down to the hard metal pan below. That gets uncomfortable pretty fast and you will find the need to take a break. While there's no escaping that the Brutale is clearly unhappy outside of its comfort zone, it turns equally sensational when you take it to the right place. This is, first and foremost, a hard-hitting, pulse-raising sports bike, and it has been engineered to deliver a thrilling experience in that respect. The new Brutale gets a longer wheelbase for more stability, but this is still a razor-sharp machine.
It demands smooth roads and rewards deeply when it finds them. The steering is super quick, the brakes are mighty, and the rush of power is addictive. If you've got the traction control in the lower settings, the front wheel comes right up in first and second gear.
In fact, this is such a sharp and reactive motorcycle that you have to be on your game 100% of the time. Even with a comprehensive electronic safety net which includes switchable ABS, 4 riding modes, 8 levels of traction control and a lovely bi-directional quickshifter, the Brutale is a serious machine that demands respect. The firm suspension gets easily unsettled by mid-corner bumps, and the explosive power is all the more apparent thanks to sharp and sometimes inconsistent throttle response. It's one hell of a thriller, but the Brutale continues to live up to her name and has a low tolerance for inattentiveness or inexperience.
The MV Agusta Brutale 800 is a very pretty motorcycle at a very pretty sum of money. At Rs 15.59 lakh ex-showroom, it costs nearly double of some similarly spec bikes like the Kawasaki Z900 and the Triumph Street Triple S. And no, it isn't double the motorcycle. The reason you buy this bike is for the ultra-exclusive MV Agusta brand and the manic performance it has to offer. For those with their hearts set on this motorcycle, it's a completely heart-over-head decision, and there can be no other option.